Good morning, Joellen.
Good morning. We are back to talk about the different 38 story elements when you are editing for fiction. And today we're going to talk about timing. So I'm going to let you lead us into this nice discussion all about timing, since we've already covered location, and get us into the path again.
Right. Okay. So we're talking about the setting, story elements, and timing is very similar to point of view or location for a scene. You really want to anchor your reader as soon as you can. So into every scene. So for timing, what you want to do is you want to look at when you enter a scene. Does the reader know what time of day it is, or how much time has passed since the previous scene, or is it a particular date? So timing can mean different things, and that's okay. All your reader needs to know is what's important for your story for timing.
Okay.
And the quicker the reader gets into the timing, the quicker they'll be drawn into the scene. And you don't want them confused about, was that a month that went by or a day, or you want them to know.
It's pretty important, I mean, for the readers.
That's right. And it's funny because it's an easy one to overlook. But as a reader, you don't want to focus on it so much that that's every scene is about it's Tuesday at 4:00. You want to vary your ways in to a scene, and you can do it in different ways. But really, the only other thing I want to say about timing, where we talk about that, is if you're doing flashbacks, it's very important when you get in and out of a flashback that counts as timing as a scene as well. It's not just the beginning of a scene. A flashback is like having a scene within a scene, and you need to anchor the reader there in your point of view, your location, and the timing. So don't forget it when you're doing a flashback.
Okay. So how does a writer show a reader what the timing of scene really is?
Okay, so first of all, it depends on the type of story you're writing. So if you're writing a first person story that is a continuum in a person's life, so it's always the next, it's obvious that it's following directly right after, it's a little bit easier because you don't really need to specify the time. And if you think of a TV show like 24, where it happens in 24 hours, and it's really obvious from the structure of the story, it's boom, 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 boom. That's one way. The other way, if you're writing, say, a historical novel, a time travel novel, you can put dates in the heading. So September 20th, 1577. And so right away, the reader knows, oh, we're back historically. Or if you're following a historical trend where you're maybe jumping 10 years or 15 years for key events, the dates become important. You can do it in a way where you just say something like later that night, ... Right. So the reader knows it's the same day. You can use thought. So, it could be someone in their head thinking, I can't believe it's been 2 weeks since I talked to him. That's just a thought. And you go, okay, 2 weeks have gone by. You can do action. So I grabbed a flashlight and ran into the backyard. Okay, it's nighttime because it's dark. Or maybe there's an eclipse and you need a flashlight. It could be that too. And then the final one is dialogue. So we meet. You haven't called me in 6 months. What's up with that? So now we know 6 months has gone by. And we also know I'm a little testy about it, that you haven't called me in 6 months. And that's just not very nice to Ellen.
We got a little tension there, and we got to have some conflict resolution. We got to work on our scene. Okay, so we're always coming back to how we can actually work this through. And we've been breaking down our scenes piece by piece by piece, and we're giving them this list of these 38 elements to kind of look through. What can they do to make sure that timing is not an issue?
Okay, so there's two ways to look at this. One is as an editor. So if you're an editor and you're editing somebody else's scene, you need to make a list of the timing of every scene. And if you can't tell as the editor when the scene is happening, that's a problem, and you need to tell the writer. It will also help you look at the variety of ways that a writer is telling the reader what the timing of the scene is. And you want to make sure it's smooth and it flows with the story and it makes sense for the scene. And here's also where you're looking for plot holes that you think, well, okay, I know that city, and there's no way in 1 hour that character could have gotten from place A to place B. So we know the timing of the scene, but there's a problem with the timing because you can't physically make that happen, right? So the editor has to look at timing in a contextual point of view for them.
Mhm.
And then as the writer, okay, you guessed it, you need to make a list of the timing of every scene. And does it make sense? Do you think it's clear to the reader? Are you using variety in how you're anchoring the reader in your scene timing? So for both the editor and the writer, it comes back to you need to make this list. And here, you know, as we go through all of the setting elements, you can do them all at once. And so you don't have to go through scene by scene for every element, because you can look at what is the location, what's the timing, what are the key objects, and so on, without having to go back through for each scene and each element.
I think it's very helpful to have this full list to kind of, I mean, if you're not using a tool like Fictionary, that it is very important to have that list there so you can just kind of tick through it. And, you know, it's always good to have a visual. It's kind of like, I use it again and again, but having that pilot checklist, okay, if before I launch this book, before I send it out, before I'm going to finish it and say, okay, I'm done. This is basically the list that our editors are using. So it's always good as a writer to know that. And again, it's a symbiotic relationship there, that the more you know as a writer what we're looking at and what we're going to do, then you actually know your weaknesses and you can ask better questions of your editor, because maybe you know there's a problem but you don't have the solution. So if you give it to us, then we can bring it back and look at it and make sure that we hammer down on those things, and you get better return on your money there. And I think that's really important when you're using a professional editor. But regardless, if you're self-editing, here's the list. Keep going. You can do it.
You know, and Joellen, that's a great point. All of your story coach editors edit in the same way, and they will provide a list. And what I found in working with my writing clients is that when you can show a writer, like, look, here's how many times you entered a scene with and later that night or earlier that morning, or you know, and you can show patterns. And when a writer can see the pattern, they can understand not only that there is an issue with it, but also, hey, if I change this one here, I've broken that pattern, and now I have a new way of doing it. And it stimulates the writer to be creative and think of different ways to actually tell their story and make it a better story.
Exactly. So it's just having the little tips and tools and tricks to know, and you know, you don't know what you don't know. That's why we're going through the 38 steps. And I really think that, you know, it is intense, but writing is a lifelong process. It's not a one-time you learn and you're done. You may have finished your degree or however you became a writer, but you ultimately are going to learn more every day. So this is just part of that. So, and self-editing and editing in general is a very unique skill. So great. So everyone get on out, look at your timing, see how it breaks down, and we'll be back with our next 38 story elements. Follow along on YouTube and our podcast, and we'll talk to you more.
All right, Joellen, thanks. Next up is objects.
Thanks for watching. Try Fictionary Storyteller free for 2 weeks at fictionary.co. Storyteller will get you one step closer to telling that powerful story you dream of.